I want to talk to you about prisons. At least here we're on safe ground because it's a subject I know something about. I spent, quite a number of years of my life as a voluntary prison visitor. And it's an issue that concerns me. I note the Prime Minister's attempt to reform the prison system. I think it's all well and good insofar as it goes, but the main flaw with our prison system is that there are simply too many people in jail. We have more people in prison than any other country, to the best of my knowledge, in Western Europe, and it's not acceptable. It's certainly not acceptable. So why? Well, let's talk about a couple of features of prison as I remember, and many times, because for years I was a prison visitor and I used to go in every week. Couple of points here. Violent crime. In my experience, in my quite a number of years of visiting prisons, and I visited rapists, I visited people in for GBH, frequently for GBH, people in for all sorts of crimes. In my limited experience, there were a number of, so many people. I never visited anybody in for violent crime that hadn't committed that crime under the influence of alcohol. There were one or two who were there because of drugs issues, violent criminals, but their crimes were committed mostly when they couldn't get their drugs and they were trying to find money for drugs. Yes, so alcohol-related crime is a huge problem, massive problem when it comes to violent crime. And we have to be very conscious of this. The other thing about the prisons I was visiting, obviously, we had kind of three. I was visiting a Category C jail. We had three. Well, there were remand prisoners. There were Rule 43 prisoners, which were the sex offenders. There was the young offenders unit, and then there was the main wing, the main adult male prisoners. I didn't visit much on the sad Rule 43 prisoners. I found them difficult to relate to. That's a shortcoming in myself, no doubt. I didn't visit much in the young offenders unit. It was tough. I spent most of my time visiting the adult wing. It was tough in the young offenders unit. And it's a sadness in our society that we have young offenders units in prisons. Some of the kids, there were kids there I remember visiting as young as 15 in jail. What for? All sorts of ridiculous crimes, taking and driving away, cars, vehicle crime, that kind of thing. A lot of suicides in these prisons, young offenders. Very often I noticed gypsy kids would top themselves, would kill themselves. Odd that, but that happened a lot. What to say about this? It's not the place for our children when they go astray. They shouldn't be in adult male prisons. We used to have in Britain a borstal system. It was flawed. It was majorly flawed. They called them farm schools. But by God, it was a lot better than the kind of thing we have now. Seriously, there is something insane, something very, very wrong about putting children into prison, and we have to do something about it. Now, it's not down to the Police and Crime Commissioner to change government policy and to restart the borstal system. We have no influence. But there are things we can do. I certainly want more street-level restorative justice. Now, I've mentioned this before. There is a possibility of delivering youngsters who offend, to giving them the choice of the copper on the beat can say, okay, here's your choice. You either do community service or I arrest you. And look, it's possible to deliver this. We have seen this experiment. It was briefly tried in Brixham at one point. What's key to it is having the funding for the voluntary sector to deliver the voluntary sector side of it. But that's doable, because remember that the Police and Crime Commissioner has control of a huge voluntary sector budget. I think it's a way forward. Fewer kids going through the criminal justice system, more kids being assigned community work. It's going to be. We'll try it in areas where we introduce this zero tolerance policy. I think that's the best way to try it and experiment with it initially. But I think it could work. I think it could help. It help reduce the prison population and help reduce children going to prison. I don't want to see people fined. That's not a way forward, by the way. I noticed a colossal number of people in jail for non-payment of fines, you know. What a waste of time. I mean, at least it's been a couple of years since I was a prison visitor, but that was the way it was. So we need to think about that too. It's an issue. There are lots of issues here with regard to the criminal justice system. And some of them you may not think are part of the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner to deal with. But I think they are. At least I think they are. It's important that the Police and Crime Commissioner expresses a view on key issues, and these are criminal justice related issues, and we can do our bit and change things a little for the better. Do you know, I will add, I think it's important that the Police and Crime Commissioner expresses a view on, even on social issues. Remember that crime is often because of social pressures. There are social pressures, and poverty, unemployment, these are factors. So I'll take a view on these issues. If elected, I will try and make a real difference, and I do hope you will give me your vote. Thank you.